Hey, what's going on? Respect the Jeff here, and today it's time to go on a little rant. I'm here to talk about why the gameplay in FIFA 21 is so fundamentally broken, specifically in online game modes like Ultimate Team or Seasons where you're playing against other people. Now, this is hardly a controversial opinion, I think. If you take a look at any of EA Sports' social media posts about the game, you're gonna see how people feel. Virtually every comment is along the lines of fix your game or don't bother adding more features, just fix the gameplay. And as someone who's never really played online, I always thought the series just had a whiny fan base. And every year I hear the same thing from my friends. Pace is too overpowered, through balls are too overpowered, this type of shot, skill move, they're all overpowered, and I just never thought much of it because when I sit down to play FIFA, I don't see what they're talking about. But as most of you have probably seen, I started an online tournament, the online career mode with some YouTube friends, and playing against other people for the first time has made me realize that the type of FIFA that I've been playing offline against the computer is nothing like the game that these people have been complaining about for years. And really, by playing offline for so long, I've inadvertently been shielding myself from all of the broken gameplay and abusive mechanics that I've heard about for so long. And to be completely honest, this tournament for me has been like playing a completely different game, one that just happens to have the same name. The difference is night and day. It did not take me long to come to this realization. We kicked off the tournament with a draft to pick our players, and I went in with a very carefully picked backline of Fabinho and Chiellini, and I really wanted smart center backs with solid technical ability so I could play this possession football like I always do in career mode. And really, despite being told time and time again by all the other players, all that matters is pace, I just dismissed everyone's warnings because hey, I've played a lot of FIFA and I've really never had a problem before. I play this way offline, but I quickly learned that this experience was nothing like playing against the computer. Literally within 30 seconds of playing my first match in the tournament, I saw a side of the game that I had never seen before. Pace is king. And the game was at times just a 50-yard dash simulator, and I left the game fuming. The entire match just felt so different from what I was used to, in a bad way. And it wasn't just this first game. Every match so far in the tournament has left me coming away feeling unsatisfied. And to be completely honest, it's even the games I've won. Something just doesn't feel right, doesn't feel satisfying. And at the bottom of it all, I think it just seems like FIFA itself was having more influence in the outcomes than either player really did. And this feeling is why I think I've always avoided playing against other people online. From time to time over the years, I'll try a game or two and it just doesn't feel right. But like I said, I've never been able to pinpoint exactly why I felt this way. So after losing 2 more games this week and probably just feeling like a sore loser, I decided to make a whole video about why I hate FIFA. But jokes aside, I feel like this is a good time for me to explore my long-standing problem with FIFA's online gameplay and why I've spent so many years avoiding it and only playing the computer or using realism mods to enjoy the game as much as I can personally. But what are these tangible reasons and why the gameplay feels so wrong to me? Well, I actually did some analysis for a change, and I came up with a few fundamental issues that I have with the gameplay that makes it feel broken, unrealistic, and really devoid of any deeper sense of reward in the gameplay. And I have 3 main points here. Defending is broken, creativity does not matter, and at the end of the day, the game decides all. But obviously me just saying this doesn't make it true, so let's take a look at some examples. Now a quick aside here, the only clips I have available to work with are from online career mode because like I said, I don't play online and I have nothing else to use. I think this goes without saying, but I just want to clarify, obviously none of these are meant to criticize any of the players I'm up against. We're all good friends and totally just having fun playing in this tournament together. I just need to use these clips because I have nothing else to back up my points. I have no other data points to go off of here. But we'll get started here with my first point. Defending is broken. And it's really at the heart of all of this. The defensive side of FIFA is completely disrespected. The game doesn't reward you for good defensive positioning or timing, and in fact, it will often go completely out of its way to prevent your player from making a smart tackle or an interception, and I think this is the game's way of keeping things exciting, but it is frustrating. Here's my first example to point out exactly what's going on. You can see at this moment, the pass is being made, and at the same time, I'm trying to prevent this exact pass from happening. I have my defensive midfielder selected, I'm anticipating this run into space, I'm positioned in the right spot. You could argue maybe behind him there's an option. You see this man is open, he is running away, maybe you could work through a pass. Honestly, neither one would be a great option, but especially the pass that I'm trying to prevent here should just flat out not be open. It's not a great pass to make. You can see I'm still in the right spot, and if we freeze frame at this moment, the defender should have this covered. All he has to do is stick a leg out in the direction. Instead, he sticks it out towards the defender parallel to the ball, completely letting it run through and disregarding my input in the game game whatsoever. Now you can see again, Thomas Partey stands back up, watches Ronaldo go by, fair play, whatever, a nice piece of skill to beat the first man. But again, it's the same exact situation. The pass is made at this moment. I have the defender anticipating this exact move. Again, on paper, he should be in the right spot to just stick a foot out and make an interception here. I'm anticipating that run a little ahead of the man. And let's take a quick, super detailed tactical analysis. You can even see he's planted on the right foot. He's ready to stick his right out into space. It's the exact same situation. All he has to do is put a foot out to intercept the ball. It's already on its way, but instead he changes and opens his hips up to go parallel with the ball and let it run through to his man. And examples like these, when you look at them, are just egregious. I'm not saying it only happens to me. I mean, it's a fundamental problem with the game. I'm looking through my gameplay, so a lot of these are just going to be my defensive highlights, but you see this time and time again where the defensive input is completely disrespected. But that could just be a one-off thing, right? Well, I think it's wrong, because I see this happen over and over and over again, where the wrong decision on paper is made, but it still benefits the attacker. You can see in this situation, again, the pass is made at this moment, and when we do this and freeze the frame when the pass is made and what the attacker is seeing at this moment, it's not open. There's two men in front of the pass and the recipient of the ball. There's even a center back covering him behind. This completely highlighted circle in red should be off limits, really. You could maybe argue that a ball over the top could work into space. The attacker might have to adjust his run, but with the center backs pulling off, that could be open. That's not what happens though. The pass is made into space regardless. The game pulls one defender off, slows down the other, and allows the man to get into space, get on the end of it regardless. Fair enough, I guess. Koundé makes a poor tackle. That kind of thing just does happen. But again, we are at a juncture here where we see the same exact thing happening again. The man is in front of the pass that's being made, the recipient of the ball, the defender's in a good position. There's no reason that he should not block this. The play is being read. Regardless, you can see here when the pass is made, it just runs through. Nothing happens. You're not given the option for an interception button in the game. This stuff is supposed to be automated, but it's not. Now I have two more examples from my defensive point here. They both happen to be from my game against Pat just because that's the last game I played. I mean, I think it goes without saying nothing against Pat. I think it just speaks to the game that any given game that you pick footage from, you can find a million of these examples. And again, if we freeze frame at the point the decisions are made here, you can see before the pass even happens, Koundé's covering his man, I'm closing down with Navas on the wing, and at the second the pass is made, like we've seen in all of these examples, the man is still covered. Now that doesn't mean the cross won't work. Maybe he's got better heading ability, maybe he can just win it over his man. That's fine if that sort of thing happened, but watch what unfolds next. Again, right when the cross is made, you can see Koundé goes from having his man covered to peeling off and intentionally leaving him wide open to allow Mane with a free tap-in really right in front of goal. And again, it's just so infuriating because why bother even having decisions made in FIFA if the game is just going to alter the positions of players after the fact to change the outcome of scenarios? Now here's my last point on defending before we move on to my other problems with the game. We can see another example of all of this unfolding. I'll let this play out. You can watch how the goal unfolds at first and how it ends up in the back of the net. And to be completely honest, at first glance, a lot of these just don't seem that bad. It's like fair play, all right, some nice passing movements, it ends up in the back of the net, but let's take a look at what's happening here and why the defensive side of the game, like I've been saying, is completely just disrespected. You can see at this instance, a well-timed challenge has been made. I'm ahead of the man, his foot is on the ball. The tackle should be made here. Regardless, the game decides to play on. The man just basically walks through the challenge with a little stumble after. Whatever, that's the start of the play, maybe that happens. Now again, at the point the pass is made here, there's nothing particularly eye-catching open here. The man is available in the box. He can probably get it to feet with his back to goal. That's fine. What ends up happening is it finds its way in the back of the net with a little roll off the defender, but let's take another look at what exactly happens here to lead to that. So I'm trying to close down the pass initially. This is right after it's been made. When I realize I'm not getting to the ball, I quickly tab over to the center back to try to control the situation and close down the space. Now at this point, the pass is still coming in. I've got my man trying to close down in the box. Hernandez is anticipating the run into space. Not only am I ahead of the man and ready to make an interception, the shot should not be on here. The defense has it covered, but you can see here, Hernandez comes in, and again, the game takes matters into its own hand and pulls his foot back from the challenge, a challenge that he should be getting to first. The tackle was made before the shot was taken, but instead he hangs his foot a couple inches in front of the ball for several frames to allow the shot to get off and find its way into the back of the net. And again, I'm just pulling footage from my most recent game or two, but this kind of stuff happens all the time, and it's not just against me, obviously. This stuff just happens all the time in the game. the defensive side of the game is ignored in favor of allowing more chances and excitement to find its way into games. Regardless if good decisions are being made on offense or not, you're gonna create chances and goals. So that to me is why the defense is broken. But now if we turn our eyes to the offensive side of the game, it doesn't look much better. Now in real football, there's a million ways to play. There's a wide variety of passing sequences, pieces of skill, even types of finishes that can all be used to great success. But in FIFA, 90% of these are irrelevant and effectively stripped away, and that just leaves people with an incredibly repetitive and unrealistic offensive set of moves. Now, there's a couple key areas to focus in on. Number one is the passing. Now, in the defensive examples I showed, we've seen how passes that don't make any sense on paper will often work out anyways. And that's the fundamental problem with passing. There's no point in waiting for sensible passes to move and open up the space when you can just spam through balls to your striker and be basically guaranteed that a couple are going to work out in your favor over the course of a game, and it's going to get you goals. And this just leads to a complete lack of creativity. Now, why even bother with build-up play, or I'll even go a step further and say, why even bother with the entire midfield? It's irrelevant. There's no point stringing passes together if it's just as effective to spam long balls and passes that really shouldn't work out, with the guarantee that the game is going to make a couple work out in your favor regardless of how hopeless they might be. Now, I've gotten together two clips from my gameplay and my attacking gameplay here that I think highlights exactly what I'm trying to say. The first clip you can see here is from my last game against Pat, where I have a really nice passing sequence that's using a pretty realistic sense of space to open the play up a little bit and try to work through a chance. Now you can see here, Lionel Messi, the best passer in the world, has a great chance to play a ball into space here to the man running into it who should not be covered by the center backs. You can see one's peeling off. There's no chance that the right back's going to catch up to him. This play should work out. I'm not saying every pass has to be hit perfectly, but on paper, this should be the kind of chance that feels rewarding and should be finished off with a nice move. Regardless, the pass is made, the defender backpedals as fast as the offensive player runs forward, and he still manages to get to it. Again, I'm not saying this has to come off every time, but if I dig through the gameplay, there's constant examples like this where you're just not rewarded really at all for being creative or making these kind of passes. When you look at this freeze frame, that kind of play should at least be on in some sense. So not only does the game not really reward creativity and a lot of realistic passing sequences, but it's the complete opposite. Like I mentioned earlier, it rewards you for making bad decisions. You can see a goal that I actually did score here with a little through ball to Ben Yedder. Fair enough, whatever, a nice chip from distance. And again, at first glance, it doesn't look that bad, but look at the point the pass is made. This is a bad decision for me. There are two center backs covering. Van Dijk is right in front of him. He's got his back, fair enough, maybe he can't turn fast enough, but the other center back is anticipating this run and has yards ahead of Ben Yedder, who's not that much quicker. Instead, what you see happen is the game decides to leave the man completely open and find the ball to his feet anyways. It is not a good decision on my part. You can see even here when the pass nears the feet of the attacker, the man is still covering the run, but regardless, he peels off and makes a parallel run. You can see the defender has not switched. So this is the AI controlling this player. Kevin is not controlling him. He decides, the game rather, decides to pull him off and not make the challenge in favor of opening up the space and allowing the striker to get into that area and finish a goal at the end of the day. And it's just really disheartening. I don't come away from that feeling like I scored a good goal. I would much rather score a chance like this. You can see moving it around well, finding openings in space, and ultimately waiting for that final ball that does come. The players are moving around nicely. I'm really feeling like I'm earning this one, and making good decisions. Messi plays that ball, and it just doesn't pan out. Instead, I find myself relying on these types of goals to just score and get myself ahead in games. When it doesn't make me happy, this isn't the kind of football that I like to play, and to be completely honest, it's unimaginative, it's boring, and at times, it's just stupid. And with the ball at your feet, it's really no different. I've quickly discovered playing other people that there's a few OP skill moves against players that really just ruin the rest, and it's the same situation. Why bother trying anything other than a roulette or a fake shot when you can just repeat these two over and over and over and over and over and over and over with a high success rate? And also, this just ties back into the broken defending. I think that's at the heart of it all. Even if a player does a skill move in a situation that doesn't make sense, they're often still rewarded for it, and it's the same problem as passing. So there you have it. The defense is broken, the offense is devoid of creativity, and when you add these two together, you get really boring, unimaginative gameplay that I think is the reason I don't find it rewarding. The vast majority of goals end up as a result of through balls to a pacey forward and a top in smash to finish off the move, maybe add in a roulette or a fake shot, and that's as much variety as you're going to see from the majority of online gameplay. Obviously a little black and white here, but again, that's at the heart of my problem with the game. And taking all of this away, this is my final point to make. At the end of the day, the game decides all. And here we get to the crux of the overarching problem with FIFA. When your ability to defend doesn't matter, or when your ability to pick out an intelligent pass or improvise with a unique bit of skill doesn't matter, the game is what's deciding everything. And it's the reason why I often come away from games feeling like I'm just along for the ride rather than actually responsible for the outcome. Even if I win or lose, it's the same feeling at the end of the day. When I'm rewarded for unintelligent goals like I scored here, I just don't feel accomplished at all. All I do is hit a button and hope for the best. The game has way more influence over the match than either of the players do at times. And if I'm getting to the bottom of all of this, this is why FIFA feels broken to me. It's a game with an intentionally narrow skill gap. This is not an accident. It's been carefully designed to allow players of any level to get a constant sense of satisfaction in the gameplay, even if they're not objectively playing well. You can spend an entire game making bad decisions and still come away with chances and probably goals. If you don't believe me, try passing the ball to an opponent. It's literally impossible at times because the game takes the vast majority of the decision away from you and into its own hands. You're just pressing some buttons and having a surface level interaction while it makes all of the real decisions. Now there's one big caveat here that I can't avoid mentioning though, and it's the fact that FIFA has a fairly difficult task of cramming 90 minutes of action into a 10-minute simulation. And the gameplay, if it was perfectly realistic, we would never see any goals. So some concessions need to be made to open up space and create more chances per play than you would ever see in a real match, and that's fair. To do this, there needs to be some amount of either like moving defenders out of the way or making shots maybe finish at a higher percentage rate, so I sympathize with the problem that FIFA has to solve here. But at the same time, as much as I understand that, I just get the sense that this is a little more sinister. There's a million ways to translate a full game of football into a smaller time slot without flat out cheating. If we take a look at the example where a decision is made incorrectly but still works out, that's not just a failure to capture the sport well and condense it down into a time slot, it's just bad game design. A good game is one where your good decisions are rewarded and your bad ones are punished. And FIFA does the complete opposite, and I think the real reason is that they want to appease the biggest market available. Now, when anyone can hop into a game of FIFA and just get a little rush of happiness because they scored a goal or played a ball that worked out, you end up with way more people willing to buy the game and continue to play it. Now imagine how frustrated a newcomer would be if they come into the game, they get shut out every move, and they just couldn't create a single chance. They'd get frustrated, they'd quit, they'd probably never play again. But instead, they find themselves enjoying FIFA because they get a random goal from what should be a poorly timed through ball, but the game decides to pull a couple defenders off, open the man up, and they get a goal from it. But I think this decision from EA comes at a cost, and that is unrewarding, hollow gameplay, the type of stuff that I've been mentioning. When the game just gives you these frequent, randomized feelings of success, pretty much regardless of your decisions, everything starts to feel the same. The worst attackers are going to score goals, the best defenders are going to concede plenty of goals, and it's because, like I said, at the end of the day, the game has more influence over the play in a lot of examples than the players themselves do. Now, this is what separates a game like FIFA from games that go down another route. If you look at competitive sports games like Rocket League, all that matters is the player's input. There's no room for interpretation or a helping hand from the computer. If you make a good decision, it's going to get rewarded and vice versa. Now, I don't obviously want to draw too many comparisons between these games. They're so different, but I'm just talking about the feeling you get from them. It's night and day. Rocket League can be frustrating while you're learning, but it's among the most rewarding to play once you've mastered the skill set and you feel like things are in your control. On the other hand, like I said, FIFA's the opposite route. It can give you fleeting fun to anyone who picks the game up, but it just feels empty and like there's a missing link between your decisions and what's happening in-game, regardless of how much you play or how much you've mastered the control set. It kind of feels like you're strapped into a roller coaster. You can wave your arms around and make all the noise you want, but at the end of the day, you're just along for the ride, for the emotional highs and lows that were already dictated by the ride itself, which in this case is FIFA. So when bad decisions lead to good outcomes and good decisions can lead to bad outcomes, what's the point of even having you control the game at all? I know it's a bit of a dramatic statement, but like I said, at times it feels like the game leans so far into controlling the narrative and the emotions of a match and making the game exciting on its own to create chances regardless of input. You're losing a deeper sense of fulfillment and enjoyment in playing the game. If you can win or lose and still feel unfulfilled, why bother playing? Now, obviously this is just my take, and I'm probably just upset at the end of the day that I got beat a couple games in a row. But jokes aside, this is ultimately why I avoid playing online games completely. Now, that's not to say that career mode doesn't have its own issues. Playing games offline against the computer definitely have their fair share of problems. They're just not the same as when you play against another person. But at the end of the day, I'm just gonna stick to my lane. And honestly, props to those who get enjoyment out of the online game modes, for those who play Ultimate Team or Seasons or whatnot. It's just not my cup of tea. I mean, if anything, this video is just a way for me to think through what it was about FIFA's gameplay that's rubbed me the wrong way so many times recently, and just put some concrete examples down to show why playing online bothers me so much, and really reiterate to myself, I guess, why I've avoided it for so long and will continue to do so in the future. And hopefully this resonates with some folks out there. Maybe not, but even if that's the case, I do appreciate that you took the time to watch. If you've been enjoying this series, or this video rather, check out my other series on the channel. I'm currently doing one with Schalke and some other things. Please consider subscribing to the channel. It helps me out a ton, and I promise I will be back with some less negative content soon. But until then, I'm Respect the Jeff, and I'll see you next time.